And welcome back to the Lantern Corp video. Today's Lantern Corp video comes for us from Nuscott 878G, and Andrew told us, who asked the question, what Lantern Corps does King Ghidorah belong in? Now, this answer can vary depending on which version of King Ghidorah you're going with. However, and I did actually forget to put a Lantern Corps in here, so as I'm talking, before I go all the way to showing off Lantern Corps, there is something that needs to be, I do need to add a Lantern Ring in here. But yeah, we're going to just kind of look at it as an amalgamation, because really everything emotionally or, aspect of some part, be it life, death, whatever. Basically, all the versions of the Ghidorah pretty much represent that. There are different Ghidorahs in terms of what they are capable of doing, but in terms of how powerful they are, but in terms of like what an emotion aspect of the universe kind of governs Ghidorah, that usually stays the same no matter what version you're looking at. So first up, I think let's get a couple of the ones that he doesn't qualify for right away. There is no way on God's green earth that Ghidorah is a life lantern. This individual's job is to snuff out life where he goes. There's no way on God's green earth he is a light lantern. There's also no way in God's green earth that he's a blue lantern. He's not a lantern of hope at all. So that's a no right there. That's a whole lot of no there, Jim. So there's no way he's a blue lantern, and there's no way he's a love lantern. Ghidorah is Ghidorah does have a mind of his own and a personality, kind of, but Ghidorah is basically an attack dog for other individuals. With the exception of the MonsterVerse right now, because we don't know, but apart from the fact that Ghidorah is an alien, we don't know anything about the origin of Ghidorah. Every other version of Ghidorah is basically an attack dog for someone. And, he goes and he's basically he's the pest control and goes and terraforms planets or destroys planets and whatnot. He's a weapon. So, really, you got to look at Ghidorah from that aspect. So, love is not going to work either. Fear, however, is, of course, got to be on the list. This is a world-ender kaiju. This kaiju has literally gone around the planets, wiped them out. At one point, I think he was fighting Jaguar, and he actually siphoned off enough energy from the sun to cause it to dim a bit. This guy is scary. No matter what version you look at, be it the Showa era, the Heisei era was particularly frightening, or was a bit on the scarier side. Even anime Ghidorah, as weird as that version was, when you realize what that thing is capable of doing, you're like, that is frightening. And obviously, MonsterVerse Ghidorah has got to be in there, so fear has to be on the list of things that Ghidorah qualifies for. Then you have avarice. Now, avarice is one of those things where this was one I'm not sure on, because avarice, as you know, is greed. Just to qualify, now it amplifies the greed in you. People have brought that up before, and they're right. It does amplify the amount of greed you have, and so you don't want to ever lose, to give anything to anyone. But at the same time, you have to have a certain amount of greed or insatiable nature of some kind to begin with. And Ghidorah's one where I'm not sure, because Ghidorah is technically a weapon for other individuals, particularly in the show era, like Planet X, or the aliens from Planet X are the ones who sent Ghidorah. Technically speaking, Ghidorah doesn't really have any wants, or he's just sent to destroy and consume whatever. But because of that, because that's what his job is, I don't think there's any he gets he must get put to a stasis or something when they're done with him. Or they just make a new Ghidorah, quite frankly. Maybe they just make a new one. Either way, I think there's a level of never satisfied with Ghidorah. That Ghidorah just goes, eats, and continues. Kind of like Galactus in that way. Which I don't think I've ever covered Galactus. We'll eventually get to Galactus. But yeah, so I think avarice might not be as strong as fear, but I think it's got to be considered at least. Another one that we'll talk about for consideration is the Black Lantern. And this, I think, is another just high, strong chance. A very likely chance that this would be the ring for Ghidorah, because Ghidorah is a world ender. The amount of planets Ghidorah has probably snuffed out, and the billions of life forms he's snuffed out, is probably incalculable. And that's not true. I bet the aliens from Planet X probably have an actual calculation. So is the quintillionth septillion that he's wiped out. Brilliant. yeah, Ghidorah, no matter what version you look at, is an. Let's be very clear. There is one version of Ghidorah. I gotta backtrack when we get to the end of the Lantern Rings because I always forget one of them. There is one version of Ghidorah I always forget that isn't the same as the rest. But anyway, still, Black Lantern Ring has got to be a qualification. I debated red. I did. Because every time we see Ghidorah go up against Godzilla, it's never this, except in, I believe, in the Showa era where they did fight a couple times. Like the same Ghidorah and the same Godzilla. Except for that, in like Heisei, they only met the one time. Yeah, he came back as Mecha King Ghidorah, but they only met the one time. In Millennium, none of those movies except for the Kiru series are connected, so it doesn't really matter. And anime doesn't matter. Now, MonsterVerse version, it's very possible you can make the argument that Godzilla and Ghidorah have met before. At least a member of Godzilla's species had met Ghidorah. We don't know if Godzilla himself had met Ghidorah at that point, or if that was the first time. But what I'm trying to get at is because they've never met before, I don't know if Ghidorah is harboring any anger or if he's just naturally aggressive. I'll say rage, though, is still a possibility, because aggression goes hand to hand with rage. And if you are dealing with a couple of the versions that has history with Godzilla and, harbors the grudge, that helps foster the rage further. So I guess I'll leave rage on there. Last but not least, another solid option is compassion, because Ghidorah ain't got no time for that. Like I said, Ghidorah is just a weapon. Almost a mindless weapon, to be honest. He really doesn't have much. I mean, he does what he wants when he's on the location that his, lords or whoever's controlling him, where they want him. But he does kind of what he wants there. He's still under their control. But either way, he just does not care. There's no compassion with this thing at all. So I think, honestly, you got to actually include him in the argument for compassion. So that breaks us down to the final act here. What is the most likely Lantern Corp out of these 5? And then I'll talk about the catch-22 and all this. I think the least likely falls between Rage and Avarice. And I'm going to go with Avarice on that. I think while Ghidorah may never be truly satisfied, I think when he's done doing what he's doing, he just goes off and flies away and then just goes to the next one, whatever. I don't think it's avarice, I just think it's what he's driven to do. Not out of this excessive need to just, I want more. It's just like, okay, well, on to the next one. Kind of like that. It's kind of like a job for it. It's like his day job. Granted, a day job he enjoys doing probably, but his day job. So yeah, I'd probably go with that. And then between rage, fear, rage, compassion, death, I am probably going to go rage in the 4th place. The reason I say that is because of the lack of connective tissue with every Ghidorah and every Godzilla. Because the relationship is very fragmented throughout most of those series, and they only just kind of meet then and there. I gotta say rage, while Ghidorah is just a naturally aggressive individual, I think rage actually kind of falls short compared to the other remaining 3. I think the other remaining 3 are just stronger. Oh, excuse me. So, in that ground, yeah, I'm going to actually put red. Not to say red's a bad option. He could be a red later. Just the other 3, I think, beat him out. Now, is the amount of fear that people and beings have of him, and the amount of death and destruction this guy has caused, outweigh the lack of compassion he has? This is another case where I think he could just be any of these. All 3 of these are good categories for Ghidorah. But if I'm going to go in my top 3 here, I'm going to say that compassion probably comes in 3rd. Only because I think the amount of fear that he's caused throughout his entire existence, and the amount of death that he's caused, just the amount of death that is on Ghidorah's shoulders, and how much he revels in it usually, is so heavy that I don't think any amount of compassion could really level that out. Likewise, I think he's just known. Like, the people who are aware of him know that he is the death bringer. So I think Compassion, unfortunately, gets edged out there. So that brings us to Death. Yeah, goodbye. That brings us to Death, and I could have just moved the tab over. I was getting annoyed. Death and Fear. I'm honestly probably going to go with a Death Lantern on this one. Because Godzilla, because what I say about the reason for this is, while Ghidorah clearly inspires God knows how much fear, Godzilla isn't afraid. Godzilla sees him as a threat to his alpha status and territory and all that, but Godzilla sees him more as a rival and a threat than him being afraid of him. Like, Godzilla's, as far as we can tell, Godzilla's never truly been afraid of Ghidorah. He's never been afraid to go head. He's never been afraid to fight Ghidorah. That's the thing. And the same can be said for a lot of other kaiju that Ghidorah has met over the years. So on that ground, while humanity and the humanoid sapient race that kind of run the planet may be afraid of them, the kaiju that help defend the planet or just there, not so much. So I think on those grounds, Black is Ghidorah's Lantern Corps. Now, the caveat to all of this is I forgot to include GMK Ghidorah, who is actually the hero in that movie. GMK is part of the Millennium series, and most of them aren't connected. And Godzilla is actually a reincarnation of all the soldiers that died in, I think, the war in Japan. And he's basically this evil incarnate. And Mothra, Bagon, who dies early on in the film, and Ghidorah have to go and fight and save the day. So I actually have to take something of what I said back, is that there is a version of Ghidorah that can actually qualify for fucking Hope. That version of Ghidorah actually is very, because he's the good guy, it does qualify for a very different roster of rings. So real quick, he's the Yatama Orochi, which only was able to grow 3 of his 8 heads. Technically, that's what Ghidorah actually is in this version. So I guess you can qualify for white, as he is able to live for quite a long time. He's trying to protect everyone. I guess you might be able to qualify him there. He's got to fight against a massively evil Godzilla who's incredibly powerful. So Green Lantern, overcoming great fear. Sure. Hope. He's got to be on he's got to qualify for Hope, simply because people got to put their faith in him. So anything else I can think of here? Surprisingly, no. That's actually very interesting. Surprisingly, no. The GMK Ghidorah is actually so drastically different from the other Ghidorahs that he pretty much qualifies for 3 of the 4 rings that the main series Ghidorah, or the main versions of Ghidorah, don't qualify for. My best guess on that, believe it or not, would probably fall on Hope. Because the monsters fought with everything they had, never losing hope that they could at least maybe do something to stop Godzilla, and people had to put their faith in them. So, surprisingly, GMK Ghidorah, I think, would get Hope. And that blue would probably go well with that yellow scaling of his. But that is my thoughts on the Lantern Corps of King Ghidorah. Let me know in the comments below if you agree with this choice, or if you disagree. What Lantern Corps do you think he belongs in? Let me know in the comments below. But thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. As always, if you want us to review something, put in the comments below. Let us know. We'll do a review of it at some point. Hit that bell if you want to be notified. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.